I'm a bird, mother. I'm a bird.
There's a lot of Dragon Age stuff happening. Negative Veilguard reviews are causing mental breakdowns.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's something funny. Gaming journalists are once again upset that people are criticizing Dragon Age Veilguard. In particular, they're upset at people on YouTube and Twitter. How dare any of us criticize this game? We're supposed to just buy this corporate slop and not question anything. Something else funny is that once they got a bunch of people in the responses disagreeing with their takes, they conveniently locked them. These sort of people are so desperate to control a narrative, and they freak out when that narrative is shattered. Before we take a look at their joke of an article, let's...
I don't understand what's the point of constantly having that need to control a narrative. It doesn't make sense to me.
It really doesn't make sense to me either.
Let's take a look at some of the responses that they got that they clearly are not happy about getting. For example, Christina Tasty says, if you believe it's been poisoned, you have to believe it's been poisoned on both sides. It isn't poisoned just because you, on a personal level, disagree. Legitimate grievances don't go away because someone on the internet you don't like also has a negative opinion of said game. Feral Queen writing, no, the writing's horrible overall. Many inconsistencies, there's no funny or witty banter or interactions in this game. The ending, having played an Inquisitor that romance Solus, is horrible. Fans like me waited 10 years for this and it's just bad. Couldn't care less about the characters. They're all like directly from Tumblr, except maybe Nev and Davin. I regret buying the game. 80 euros out the window. We got Christopher saying, yeah, why can't we just consume product and get excited for next product? Why do us pesky players have to criticize access journalism? It was so much better before, when nobody could publicly criticize anything, except through access journalists. Oh, we missed those days of Monopoly. Clearly being sarcastic. Okay, now let's check this article out. Once again, the headline here is, the Dragon Age review controversy shows how much YouTube and Twitter have poisoned video game discourse. They say, these days, when a big new game comes out, you can pretty much roll the dice on what kind of reactionary controversy it will produce. Are we looking at a moral panic over trans characters?
Okay, so, again, are there extreme people who hate the game just because there's diversity in it? Absolutely. But again, the majority of people, they don't like this game because it was badly written. It was badly made. It completely isolated its existing player base. It completely dumbed down the humor. Saying that it's a roll of the dice with the panic over trans characters, it's not exactly accurate. They are picking and choosing who to complain about. We've seen this over and over again. They refuse to see legitimate criticism when it comes to the game. They want to constantly paint themselves as the victims.
Diversity consulting, games journalists being too positive, games journalists being too negative, some other quibble that will be forgotten in a week, interchangeably swapped out like grains of sand, dragged away by the unrelenting tide. Anyway, the usual suspects got mad about Dragon Age the Veilguard reviews this week. It's pretty ironic that that last part actually describes the journalists writing this article pretty well, as well as other journalists, of course. They're mad about the negative reviews and opinions that critique the game. Of course, they lack self-awareness to notice that. You can listen to this week's episode of Aftermath Hours for a full rundown of why. But the whole thing is illustrative of a larger, more important issue. Thanks to algorithmic prioritization on sites like YouTube and Twitter, this is how a growing number of people engage with video games. Plenty of normal people still... Them writing about normal people, that's funny. Gotta love being preached at by corpo bootlicking gaming journalists. Plenty of normal people still manage to tune it out, the hours-long rants and conspiracy theories. But at what point...
Well, you heard it here first. If you do not like the game, you're not normal.
I guess we're not normal.
God damn.
Point does this rancid flavor of brain rot go from vocal niche to a borderline mainstream position? And what are the long-term consequences of that? I'd love to know what they're considering a conspiracy theory. They come off like the same sort of journalists who would be in complete denial about what consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc. actually do. Just like I talked about a few days ago from Jason Schreier's defense of SPI. It's also funny how they're like panicking about the long-term consequences of people critiquing massive corporations in gaming and their associated consultancy firms. Continuing, they say, also on this week's episode, we lament the untimely end of Firewalk. Yeah, of course they are. The studio that made Concord to Sony specifications and then probably got dumpstered for it. Yeah, so here's the thing. Plenty of people at Firewalk did a terrible job on Concord. You can't just blame that all on Sony.
They did a terrible job on the game itself. They did a terrible job with even researching the market, what the audience even wants. And they did a terrible job with literally attacking the player base. when you're attacking the player base, you're literally pissing on your own leg. I think they hired a lot of people who shouldn't even be in the gaming industry. And the fact that they even tried to play the victim with the whole, oh, you're making people sad, you're making people not want to play, work in the gaming industry anymore. Boo-hoo, you guys are so mean. They don't even want to work on games anymore. Well, good. They already showed they don't know how to work on games.
And for that matter, information later came out that Firewalk Studios was already running Concord terribly in an extremely inefficient manner way before Sony even got involved, before Sony even bought Firewalk Studios. You also had this whole thing about like quote-unquote toxic positivity at Firewalk Studios, which ultimately was part of what led them down this road of failure because they couldn't take any criticism at all. Kind of like these gaming journalists, apparently. And then on top of that, you had people at Firewalk Studios talking about how they were too great at their jobs to fail. They would never fail. They're too good. What hubris. Then after the game comes out, multiple devs start attacking gamers and acting like we're all supposed to just buy their game and support them. For these journalists to try and put all the blame on Sony and ignore all that is truly pathetic. Here's an excerpt from our conversation, they say. Nathan saying, I guess my doomer-pilled concern about all of this is that the American fascist project continues to grow in power, and all of these platforms facilitate these ways of talking about things.
It's not only people from US who are criticizing the Western games. People need to get that stupid idea out of their head. By this point, it's a global joke how the Western games are.
Yeah, it's a global joke and everyone doesn't take it serious.
Conspiratorial thinking and whatnot. Do we reach a point where this becomes the default? Because I would say that right now, this is still not the way most normal people talk about games or engage with them. A lot of people, as we see, even based on Dragon Age's Steam numbers right now, saw this game, thought it looked cool, bought it, and now they're playing it. If you look at Asmongold's most viewed video about all of this, it has around 1 million views. 1 million sounds like a lot, but this game will probably be bought by north of 10 million people, so it's a fraction. And even then, a lot of the people who watched that video were probably never going to buy the game anyway. So it's not negligible exactly, but it's still a niche. But as these things continue to have relatively convenient on-ramps, like searching quote-unquote Dragon Age on YouTube and getting pulled down this rabbit hole, do we reach a point where this is the predominant mode of conversation around games? Inmates taking over the asylum or whatever? That's ironic too. Is that where we're headed? Because we've seen this in American politics. The more you enable these people structurally or systematically, the more footing they gain until they become a default. Are we looking at that in conversation around games too? Are we already a large part of the way there? And then to what extent?
Another big reason why there's a lot of YouTubers who right now speaking up against these badly made games is because you cannot trust gaming journalism. It doesn't exist. It's dead. It's gone. Forget it. The only way the actual players they can get information about a given game or criticism or positives is from YouTubers now. Right now on Twitter, I see a lot of people complain, what happened to the Let's Play format of YouTube videos? I'd rather watch that than watch some people complain about the whole trans and whatnot stuff. And there's a lot of upvotes on those Twitter posts. But it's the same reaction that the quote-unquote modern audience has. People run their mouth. But when it actually comes to it, to go support Let's Players, there's a lot of new Let's Players on YouTube. For some reason, people are not supporting them. Because people like that, they don't actually want to go support content creators who do Let's Plays. They just want to run their mouth.
Then are the people who are engaging with this stuff and dunking on these people constantly also facilitating it? I don't know. I hate to use this phrase, but I'm just asking questions. It's one of those things that I wouldn't say keeps me up at night. But when I can't sleep, I'm like, I may as well also make myself feel bad. Wait, what? I gotta read that part again. Did I read that right? I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but when I can't sleep, I'm like, I may as well also make myself feel bad. And so I start thinking about things like this.
Oh,
What?
huh?
What?
Bro, so you're telling me this thing is living rent-free in your head? Gotcha. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, this person's the perfect one to be talking about asylums. Then we got Riley responding saying, I want to say it's still a small number of people broadly. And I was talking to someone else this week about how we see the internet But there are also millions of people playing video games and who are not on the internet. So what are people actually doing? To some extent, you'll never know. And I want to say that at least on Twitter, it's an echo chamber, but I don't know. The conspiracy about Sweet Baby, I called it earlier, didn't I? Yeah, of course these people would defend SBI. So obvious. Is this widespread conspiracy, or is it 3 loud guys and their friends? I think seeing this colloquial usage of it in the DualShocker review, if you saw my video the other day about that, this is also a funny reference. Of course they're also getting mad at that, go figure. Makes me think, oh my gosh, maybe it's a bigger thing. Who just says that?
What the hell am I listening to?
My brain hurts just trying to comprehend what I just read.
What the hell? On today's episode of Diaries of the Asylum.
How dare people point out SBI and what they do? Oh my gosh. Luke responds, I think an important thing to remember is we work in video games, and we work directly with people who know as much about video games as possible, and as much about the video game media ecosystem as possible. The people who follow us on social media, all they do is talk about video games all day. Our peers and colleagues and former colleagues, that's all we talk about. As a sample of the game playing public, we are a tiny fraction of people. All my IRL friends will talk to me about Call of Duty games once a year. Everyone I play football with will talk to me about EA Sports FC once or twice a year to complain about it. They don't play Dragon Age. They don't know what that is. They barely know what Fortnite is. It's the same thing for everything.
No, you're fucking capping. Everyone knows what the fuck Fortnite is.
Okay, not everyone. If I ask my mom, hey mom, what the hell is Fortnite? She's gonna be like, the f you want? It's a valid point. Not everyone knows what Fortnite is. When game is shit, people are not gonna touch it. The fact that you're underlining not everyone is on social media and echo chamber this, echo chamber that should tell you that even people who are not on social media or follow us icky grifters, even they still don't want to buy it.
It's music, it's movies. People don't consume media about these things constantly on a daily basis. It's easy for us to lose track of that because we think everybody does, because everybody around us does. But my experience with this stuff, because I make it my point to know as many people outside of games as possible, to avoid becoming a broken husk of a person, is that it's really important to get that perspective. It's frickin' video games. No one cares. Play a game you like or don't. You don't need to go online and talk about it for 18 hours a day or whatever. So yes, people like Asmongold are out there making these videos, but like Nathan said, where's a video like that going to top out at? 1 million worldwide among English-speaking people? That's nothing.
Okay, so if your whole attitude is, who cares, it's just a freaking game, and then proceeds to criticize people whose actual full-time job is talking about games.
Math is not mathing.
If it's just games, why are you talking about it? Why are you criticizing people for whom this is literally a full-time job?
And they're talking about the English speakers being like a certain reach. Bro, your games aren't gonna sell in Asia. They don't care about what you preach. They want to see a good game, and your game is not good.
This is a perfect example of like people in an echo chamber trying to huff a bunch of copium. Nathan says, right. There are well over 300 million people in the US alone. Luke says, right. And that doesn't include English-speaking people in Europe and the rest of the Anglosphere. I don't think it's something to be worried about as a discourse-shaping trend. It's more just a bummer for that type of content on that type of medium. They're all depressed that people are not all in the same echo chamber that they're in. It's going to go on its own journey, and during that time, people are going to be put off it. People might stop watching that kind of thing and look somewhere else. They might look on TikTok or on blogs like aftermath.site. That's their website. I feel bad for these people, man. They're gonna have like the worst copium hangover ever. It's not a given that every 13-year-old boy watching an Asmongold video is going to turn into someone who thinks like that. Most people are relatively normal, and there's a point where once people with a certain kind of hateful or twisted or conspiratorial view start to get oxygen and start to get enabled, their views become increasingly bizarre to a normal person. People aren't so easily brainwashed that they'll all just go along with that. Obviously, the political situation in the US.
When it comes to what kind of content and which content creator becomes popular, the way someone gets usually popular is because they voice the opinion of the majority.
Yeah.
So them saying, oh, these people are crazies who watch XYZ person, and the person gets freaking millions of views, that just means he is resonating with the general public.
shows that lots of people can if they're subjected to it long and hard enough. But on a global basis, on a normal person basis, a lot of people will eventually be like, I think this guy's freaking weird, or who cares, it's Dragon Age, or not everything has to be a conspiracy and a political gesture. I'm more optimistic than other people are with that stuff, but it's more of a YouTube problem than a societal problem. They need to sort that out. Once again, trying to control the narrative, like all mad about people with differing opinions. So mad, as a matter of fact, it comes off like they're implying they want to be able to censor people simply because they have different opinions on video games in the industry than they do. Similarly to what we saw them do in their own comment section, where they eventually locked their responses because they were getting destroyed in them. These people are like massively unhinged authoritarians, and they have the audacity to act like they're the normal people and everyone else is the problem. Nathan responds saying, true, but in addition, it's a Twitter problem, it's a Facebook problem. With Asmongold, there is a Twitch problem. It's to some extent a TikTok problem, Luke says, but Facebook is a great example because kids don't use Facebook anymore. It's boomer stuff, and it's full of weirdos, so they stopped using it. In the last area here, Nathan says, but it's a radicalization engine for boomers. All of these things are radicalization engines. They all ended up at the same place despite starting at different starting.
Is Asmongold the new woke culture #1 enemy? He doesn't even go as deep as specific YouTubers we watch. All I'm getting from all of this is they constantly keep on trying to find someone to blame.
If we're just talking on radicalization engines, those are our main means of communication. Then how long until everyone is some flavor of radicalized and not for the better? Wow, mask off moment much. So dude knows he's some radical weirdo and he wants people to become radicalized just like him. I'd say finally a little bit of self-awareness, but at the same time this person clearly doesn't see why that's a problem. He seems to think it's a good thing. And again, you talk about polarized politics in our country. We're already part of the way there. I hope that things get better, but I think that will require a concerted effort on the part of those who want them to be better to build something else. I think as long as we're doing it all on these platforms, there will be a slow but steady downward trend. And they end with this recommended article where they seemingly defend Sweet Baby Inc. saying, how a small video game narrative studio wound up at the heart of a massive anti-woke conspiracy theory.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I'm done with this. All I can say is just wow. Wow.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow. Wow.